AITA for cutting off my aunt after she claimed my inheritance should go to her kids instead. I 25F recently cut off my aunt 56 after a pretty huge blowout over my inheritance. For some context, I was really close to my grandparents growing up, especially my grandpa. They were like second parents to me, and we had a bond that I think was a little unique compared to other grandkids. I'd go over to their place every weekend, and they'd always talk to me about life, help me with school, and teach me all sorts of skills, from cooking to budgeting. They were just amazing people. Unfortunately, my grandpa passed away a couple of years ago, and it hit me really hard. He was my rock, and losing him was like losing a part of myself. But then, just a year after that, my grandma passed too. It was a brutal time, but knowing they were together again was a small comfort. Fast forward to last month, and my family finally went through the whole process of reading their will. I had no idea what to expect, but I found out that my grandparents left me a decent inheritance. It's not like quit your job money, but it's enough that I could finally pay off my student loans, set up some savings, and maybe even think about buying a small place in a few years. Here's where things get complicated. My aunt, who's my mum's sister, has 2 kids. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not particularly close to my cousins. They're younger than me, and we didn't really grow up together. My aunt is kind of the golden child in the family, always putting herself on a pedestal, and she's been very vocal about how she's always helped her parents financially and spent a lot of time with them. And she has, but let's just say she made sure everyone knew about it. So, after the will reading, my aunt pulled me aside and started talking about how she felt it was unfair that I got the inheritance. She explained that since her kids are still young and need a lot of support, it would make more sense if the inheritance went to them instead of me. Apparently, she thinks that because I'm an adult and independent, I don't need the money as much as they do. She even said that her kids were more entitled to it because they're direct descendants too, and it would benefit them more in the long run. I didn't know what to say at first. I tried to be understanding and pointed out that my grandparents had left her some money too, which was true, though it wasn't as much as what they left me, but she wasn't having it. She started saying that if I really cared about family, I'd consider sharing or even giving the inheritance to her kids because they deserve a better future. When I didn't immediately agree, she went off, calling me selfish, ungrateful, and claiming I was disrespecting my grandparents' legacy by keeping the money for myself. I was pretty stunned, to be honest. I'd never heard her talk to me like that before, and it hurt. I tried to explain that this was something my grandparents had chosen, and I wanted to respect their wishes. But she wouldn't back down, and the conversation ended with her basically accusing me of not caring about family. After that, I just stopped talking to her. I blocked her number, muted her on social media, and haven't reached out since. My mum is torn because, on one hand, she thinks my aunt was out of line. But on the other, she doesn't want the family to break apart over money. She suggested I could give a small portion to my cousins just to keep the peace. But honestly, I feel like that would just open the door for more demands. I'm stuck between feeling guilty and feeling like I need to stand my ground. My grandparents chose to leave this to me, and it's a part of them that I want to hold on to. It's not about the money, it's about respecting their decision and what they wanted for me. At the same time, I hate the idea of being the one who's selfish or causing family drama. So here I am, wondering if I'm really the bad person in this situation, or if my aunt was totally out of line. I haven't reached out since, and part of me wonders if I should. But right now, I'm just trying to figure out if I did the right thing by cutting her off. Update 1. So, a lot has happened since I posted. I honestly didn't expect this much to go down so quickly, but here we are. After the fallout with my aunt, I was trying to keep things low-key and just avoid her, but it seems like she couldn't let it go. A few days ago, I got a call from my mom, who had just gotten back from a family gathering I wasn't invited to shock her. Apparently, my aunt had spent the entire time venting to anyone who'd listen about how unfair and selfish I was for keeping the inheritance. She was making it sound like I was hoarding some massive fortune that should have gone to her kids and basically painting herself as a martyr who only wanted to help her family. My mom said my aunt got super emotional and even had some family members tearing up with her story about her sacrifices and how I was supposedly disregarding my grandparents' legacy. Now, a few relatives who I've always been close to started reaching out to me, asking why I was being unreasonable and if I'd consider doing the right thing. I tried explaining to them that it wasn't even about the money for me. It's about respecting my grandparents' wishes and honoring their decision. They left the inheritance to me because we were close, and I feel like it's my responsibility to uphold that. But they seem to be buying into my aunt's story that her kids need it more and that family is about sharing. What hurt the most was when one of my cousins, 18, actually messaged me, basically parroting my aunt's words about how they were struggling and how I was lucky to have had my grandparents' support while they supposedly didn't. It stung because my grandparents were equally loving to everyone, and it's not fair to rewrite history just because of money. But I didn't want to take it out on my cousin, so I tried to keep it civil. Anyway, after that, I called my mum to vent, and she could tell how upset I was. She suggested maybe we arrange a family meeting to clear things up once and for all. I was hesitant at first, but now I'm considering it. Maybe if I explain everything face to face, they'll understand that I'm not being greedy. My grandparents meant the world to me, and I want to honor what they chose to do with their legacy. But I also don't want this whole mess to ruin family relationships that used to mean a lot to me. I'm honestly torn about the family meeting idea. I feel like it could either help clear the air or make things even worse. Part of me wants to just let them believe what they want and move on, but another part feels like I need to defend myself against my aunt's accusations. I'll update again once I decide what to do. Update 2, 1 month later. So I decided to go through with the family meeting. I figured it was worth a shot to try and clear the air, even though I was pretty nervous. My mom helped set it up, and we agreed to keep it just between close family, no distant cousins or extended relatives, just the people who were actually involved in the inheritance drama. When I arrived, the tension was thick. My aunt looked like she was ready for a showdown, but I tried to keep calm and stick to the facts. I started by explaining how close I was with my grandparents, how they'd chosen to leave me the inheritance, and how much it meant to me to honor their wishes. I kept it respectful, saying I understood that her kids are important to her, but that didn't change the fact that this was something my grandparents specifically left for me. As I talked, I noticed a few family members nodding, like they were finally starting to see where I was coming from. But my aunt wasn't having it. She interrupted me, saying things like, "So what? My kids didn't get a chance to have that special bond. And you know how much I did for your grandparents. How could you not share with my kids?" She went on about how she'd helped them financially and that they would have wanted her children to be looked after too. That's when I decided to lay everything out. I told her that my grandparents were fully aware of her financial situation and that they'd chosen to give her a portion of their estate based on what they felt was fair. They wanted me to have my share for my future, and I didn't see how it was my responsibility to change what they'd planned. But here's where things got messy. My aunt started tearing up, saying I was tearing the family apart over money and that I was choosing money over family. She got really emotional, talking about all the sacrifices she'd made for everyone and how betrayed she felt. A few family members started looking at me like I was some kind of heartless villain, and honestly, I felt pretty cornered. Then, my mom stepped in. She basically told everyone that my grandparents made their own decisions and that trying to manipulate or guilt-trip me into giving up my inheritance was disrespectful to their memory. She pointed out that this was supposed to be a time for the family to come together, not to rip each other apart over money. I could have cried with relief. Finally, someone was backing me up publicly. In the end, the room was split. Some family members seemed to understand my side, but others, including my aunt, were still convinced I was being selfish. My aunt stormed out, saying she was done with this family if we're all so ungrateful. I'm not sure where this leaves us. I feel relieved that I stood my ground, but it's also sad to see how money can mess up family dynamics. Part of me feels guilty, even though I know it's not my fault. My mom told me not to worry about my aunt's reaction, but I can't help wondering if there was anything else I could have done to prevent this fallout. I guess all I can do now is wait and see if things settle down. Not really sure where the family stands now, but I'll update if anything else happens.